All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. Today we're looking at something I know a lot of you have been thinking about, especially those of you on skilled worker visas here in the UK.
That's right. We're talking about ILR, Indefinite Leave to Remain, that big step towards, well, pretty much staying here for good.
Exactly. No more visa renewals, no more worrying about points or sponsors. You're basically set. Now, we've got a ton of info to go through today, folks, a real deep dive. We've been poring over stuff from moeco.com, gov.uk, of course, those legal eagle sites like immigrationlawyers-london.com and visaandmigration.com. Oh, and those official docs from assets.publishing.service.gov.uk. Can't forget those.
And just to add to the pile, some insights from lexology.com, too. We're really trying to cover all bases here.
Because, let's be real, the official guidance, it can be a bit as a maze.
A bit. It's a labyrinth. And we want to help you guys avoid those dead ends, the things that trip people up when they apply for skilled worker ILR.
Especially since the stakes are so high, right? I mean, getting ILR, it's kind of life-changing for a lot of folks.
Absolutely. It's the path to truly settling down, building a future here without those immigration hurdles. And good news, the success rate for ILR is actually pretty decent, around 90%.
90%, that's encouraging. But there's a big but there, isn't there?
Huge but. That 90% only applies if you meet every single requirement to the letter. One slip up, and it can all come crashing down.
Okay, so no pressure then. Let's break it down, shall we? Starting with the absolute basics, how long you've actually been living here in the UK.
Right. Continuous residence, that's the foundation of everything. 5 years, 5 whole years you need of lawful residence here on a qualifying visa. That's the ticket to even applying for ILR as a skilled worker.
5 years. Okay, that's straightforward enough, but it's not as simple as just hitting that 5-year mark and firing off the application, is it?
Not quite. There's a specific window you need to hit. You can't apply any earlier than 28 days before you complete those 5 years.
So like you're basically counting down the days.
Pretty much. And there's a reason for it. The Home Office, they're quite strict. If you apply too early, even by a day or two, your application might just get flat out refused.
Refused. Not even just like put on hold.
Nope. Refused. And guess what? You might not even get your hefty application fee back.
Ouch. So no celebrating early then. What happens if, let's say, someone's getting close to that 5-year mark, but they're not quite there yet? What should they do?
Simple. Extend your current visa. No point risking an early ILR application and getting a big fat no. Much better to play it safe.
Makes sense. Now, let's talk about something I know trips a lot of people at the time spent outside the UK during those 5 years. There's this 180-day rule, right? Sounds pretty strict.
It is strict, very strict. Here's the deal. For you, for anyone on this path, in any 12-month period during those 5 years, you cannot have spent more than 180 days outside the UK.
Any 12-month period. So not just like per calendar year. Nope, it's rolling. So imagine this. You had a long holiday 2 years ago, maybe 150 days. Then last year you went away for another, say, 4 months. That's over 180 days combined in a rolling 12-month window.
Ah, I see. So it all adds up, even if it's spread out.
Exactly. And exceeding that 180-day limit, it's a major, major reason for ILR refusal. Why? Because it breaks that continuous residence requirement we were just talking about.
So what happens then? You exceed that limit, your application gets refused. What next?
Well, first off, yeah, your ILR dreams, they're on hold. But it gets worse. You might have to start that 5-year clock all over again from when you came back from that long trip.
That's brutal. So you're basically penalized twice.
You could say that. It sets you back years, potentially.
Okay, so every day counts.
Every single day you're outside the UK, it all adds up. Holidays, visiting family, even work trips, everything. It's 180 days total, no matter the reason.
Okay, hold on. What about, like, emergencies? Say someone's stuck abroad due to, I don't know, a family crisis or something. Okay, there are some very limited exceptions. Truly exceptional stuff, like major humanitarian crisis, natural disaster, war zone, that kind of thing. Or serious personal reasons, life-threatening illness, close family.
So pretty extreme situations.
Exactly. Not your average, oh, I had to extend my holiday type of thing.
So for most folks, work trips, holidays, got to keep it under 180 days, period.
That's the safest bet. Especially for skilled workers, they rarely grant exceptions for work-related travel, so plan carefully, folks. Every day matters.
Speaking of planning, what about those times when, well, things don't go to plan? Like a visa expiring before the new one's approved. That creates a gap in residence, right?
A gap and a big problem. Continuous residence, remember, no gaps allowed. Overstaying, even for a bit, or being here without proper permission, it breaks the chain.
So that 5-year clock, it can get reset.
Yep, say your visa expires and you're waiting for that new one. That waiting time, it could be counted against you.
Ouch. What about short overstays, like just a few days?
Might be okay, might not. Depends. Longer ones, though, almost guaranteed refusal. My advice. Don't risk it. Always extend or switch visas way before they expire.
Makes sense. And what if, well, this is a bit awkward, but what if someone has messed up before, like overstayed on a previous visa or something like that? Do they have to admit it on the ILR application?
100% have to admit it. Trying to hide it, that's deception, and that's way worse than the original overstay itself. The Home Office, they usually have records. They'll find out.
So honesty is the best policy, even if it's about something embarrassing.
Exactly. Tell the truth, explain what happened, why it happened. A little mistake from years ago, they might overlook it. Lying, though, that's an almost certain refusal.
Let's go back to the 180-day rule for a sec. We've touched on it, but it really does seem like a make or break thing.
It is. They don't mess around with this. More than 180 days in any 12-month period. Straight to refusal town, no detour.
We even found a quote about it from one of the websites we looked at, visaandmigration.com. They put it quite bluntly.
They did. They said, once you've spent more than 180 days, that's it. Your continuous residence is broken. No ifs, ands, or buts.
And the consequence, you said it before, but it's worth repeating. It's not just a try again later, is it?
Nope. Not only do you get refused, you might have to start that whole 5-year countdown again from the end of that excessive absence. Imagine one long trip back home could add years to your wait.
Okay, so vacations, got to be strategic about those.
Big time, but it's not just vacations, is it? What about those folks whose jobs involve a lot of travel?
Oh, right, like international business trips, that kind of thing.
Yep. Doesn't matter if your boss is sending you abroad, those days still count towards the 180. No special treatment for work trips. The Home Office, they see 181 days. Reason doesn't matter unless it's one of those extreme exceptions.
Oh, even if you're working hard for a UK company, it doesn't matter if you're physically out of the country for too long.
Sadly, not for ILR purposes. This is where good record keeping comes in.
Record keeping, like a diary of all trips?
Basically, yeah. moeandco.com, they strongly advise this. Keep a detailed travel log, every single trip, date you left the UK, date you came back. Makes it much easier to calculate your total absence.
So no relying on memory, gotta have it all written down.
Absolutely. And if you see yourself getting close to that 180-day limit, well, there are a couple of things you can do.
Like what?
Well, first, you could delay your ILR application, wait till you're safely back under the limit. Or, if you're really cutting it close, manage your future travel very carefully. Maybe even talk to an immigration lawyer, get some professional advice on your situation.
So being proactive, knowing the rules, it can save a lot of hassle down the line.
Huge difference. And look, I know this all sounds a bit, well, unforgiving, but the rules are the rules, and we're just trying to help you navigate them.
Totally. Now, we talked about honesty earlier, but let's dig a little deeper into those things that can get you flagged: immigration breaches and deception.
All right, let's get serious for a minute. Anytime you've not followed the immigration rules, even if it's not overstaying, it can count against you. They call it suitability grounds.
Suitability grounds. Sounds a bit vague.
It covers a range of things. Could be working in a job you weren't allowed to, breaking any of the terms of your visa, even small stuff, it can matter.
So, once again, hiding it is a bad idea.
Terrible idea. Especially big things, like if you've ever been refused a UK visa before, or worse, deported or spent time here illegally, those have to be declared.
Some people think, oh, it was years ago, they won't care. But that's not how it works, right?
Not at all. Omitting that info, that's seen as deceptions. And the Home Office, they usually have records. They find out.
So, even if the original issue wasn't a huge deal, trying to cover it up, that makes it a big deal.
Exactly. As visaandmigration.com puts it, even something like a deportation order, if you don't declare it, your ILR is as good as gone. They take it very seriously.
So even if it feels uncomfortable, even if it was a long time ago, come clean, be honest.
That's the best approach. You can explain yourself, show you've learned from it. Trying to hide it, that's a huge red flag.
What about more, I don't know, blatant deception? Like fake documents, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a whole other level. Forged documents, lying on the application, hiding crucial info, instant refusal, and potentially way worse.
Worse like how?
You could get banned from the UK For years, like
Yeah.
10 years, no entry. They take it seriously.
Examples of that, just so people know what not to do.
Okay, think fake English language certificate, messing with your passport stamps to make it look like you were here less, lying about a criminal record. Big no-nos.
So it's not just about being honest, it's about being thorough. Double check everything, make sure it's all legit.
Absolutely. If there's something in your past, even if it's not immigration related, better to declare it than risk them finding out later.
Right, because then it looks like you were trying to pull a fast one.
Exactly. And look, innocent mistakes, typos, that kind of thing, they're usually okay.
Uh-huh.
But deliberately trying to mislead the Home Office, that's a recipe for disaster.
Now, there's something else that's been cropping up more and more: financial stuff. Taxes, debts, that kind of thing. It's not just about immigration rules anymore.
You're right, it's getting more interconnected. The Home Office, they're looking at your financial history too, especially discrepancies between what you told UKVI for your visa and what's on your tax returns to HMRC.
So basically, they're comparing notes, making sure you're playing by the rules on all fronts.
Yep. And while most skilled workers are on straightforward salaries, if you've ever been self-employed or if you've had to amend your tax returns, be prepared for them to scrutinize that.
So no fudging the numbers, right?
Not a good idea. Deliberately underpaying tax, that's a big problem. Even just racking up a ton of debt and not dealing with it, that can raise eyebrows. It suggests you're not financially responsible.
So not just criminal stuff, even bad financial decisions can have consequences.
They can. It all ties into that good character requirement, which is crucial for ILR. My advice, if you've got any skeletons in your financial closet, talk to an immigration lawyer. They can advise you on how to approach it.
Okay, let's talk about good character a bit more. Obviously, serious criminal convictions, that's a no-go.
Big time no-go. The Home Office, they want to be sure you're not a risk to the UK. Even though ILR isn't full citizenship, they still check you out.
And they've got specific rules about convictions and how long ago they happened, right?
Oh yeah, very specific. Prison sentence of 4 years or more, doesn't matter when it was, automatic refusal. Between 1 and 4 years. Got to be 15 years clear since the end of the sentence. Under 12 months, needs to be 7 years clear.
Okay, so recent serious offenses, that's a deal breaker. What about smaller things, like a speeding ticket from years ago?
Usually fine, especially if it's spent under the rehab of offenders law and more than 2 years old. But something recent, like a drink driving conviction, that's a problem.
So when in doubt, declare it right, even if you think it's irrelevant.
Always. Better safe than sorry. Honesty is key. And remember, they're not just looking at convictions. Fines, cautions, those count too, especially if they're within the last 2 years before you apply.
So it's a pretty wide net they cast.
It is. They want to be thorough. And it's not just criminal stuff. You mentioned debts before. That plays into it too.
Right, specifically debts to the NHS.
Yeah, owing £500 or more to the NHS, they can refuse you until you pay up. They say maybe refused in the rules, but honestly, they often do enforce it.
So no dodging those NHS bills. What about other debts, like credit cards, personal loans?
Generally, not an issue, unless it's massive debt like bankruptcy or something that suggests fraud. They're mainly concerned with government debts.
So if you've got any outstanding bills from the Home Office, like court fees or something, better clear those up.
Definitely. It shows you're responsible, that you're taking your obligations seriously.
Yeah.
And that all ties into this bigger idea of good character, right? It's not just about breaking laws. It's about showing you're a decent, reliable person.
Makes sense. But even with all that, the Home Office still has some wiggle room, don't they? They can refuse you if they think you're just not conducive to the public good.
True, but that's a really high bar. We're talking serious stuff here. Terrorism links, major criminals, that kind of thing. Most skilled workers won't have to worry about that.
Okay, good to know. But it does show they have broad powers, so you can't just assume you're in the clear, even if you haven't broken any specific laws.
That's right. Be honest, be transparent, don't try to hide anything, and you'll usually be fine. Now, let's get to a topic that's specific to skilled workers and a real pain point for many, the salary requirement for ILR.
Yeah, this is a big one. Unlike some other ILR routes, you got to be earning a decent wage. And not just any wage, it has to meet the minimum threshold at the exact time they're making the decision.
Exactly. And you got to still be employed by your sponsor or a new sponsor if you've switched jobs correctly. No job, no sponsorship, no ILR.
Okay, so what's the magic number? What's the salary someone needs to be earning in 2025 to be eligible?
In most cases, it's the same as what you needed for your initial skilled worker visa, which is £38,700 per year right now. But, and this is important, it's also got to be at least the going rate. for your job, whichever is higher.
Going rate?
It's basically the typical salary for someone doing your type of work in the UK. They have a whole list of them for different jobs. Based on those SOC codes, the standard occupational classification.
Right, those codes they use to categorize jobs.
Yeah.
So even if you're over the 38,700 pounds, if your job usually pays more, you got to be earning that higher amount.
Exactly. They want to see you're not undercutting the market, that you're genuinely contributing at the level expected for your role.
Makes sense. Any exceptions to this general threshold, like for certain types of work?
You bet. Some jobs have lower requirements. Healthcare, education, those often have their own pay scales.
Yeah.
And the ILR threshold is lower, either 23,200 pounds per year or whatever the minimum is on their pay scale, whichever's higher. Nurses, teachers, those kinds of roles.
Okay, makes sense. And what about jobs on the shortage occupation list? They get special treatment, right?
They do. If your job's on that list, the salary requirement is a bit lower, usually 80% of the main threshold. So right now it'd be 30,960 per year, or the going rate for the job, again, whichever is higher.
So they're basically recognizing that those jobs are in high demand, so they're a bit more flexible.
Yep. And there's even more specific combinations, like if you're in healthcare and your job's on the shortage list, it can get pretty complicated.
Sounds like a good time to consult the official guidance. Double check your specific situation.
Always a good idea. Now, remember we talked about those pre-April 2024 folks, those who got their skilled worker visas before the big changes?
Yeah, different rules for them, right?
Yep. If you were granted your visa before April 4th, 2024, and you've stayed here continuously since, you might qualify for a lower threshold, 29,000 pounds per year, or 23,200 pounds if your job was on the shortage list back then.
So, a little bit of grandfathering going on there.
Yeah. Exactly. But for anyone who got their visa on or after April 4th, 2024, it's the full 38,700 pounds, no exceptions.
Okay, back to the going rate for a sec. Why is that so important for ILR specifically?
Well, it's all about making sure you're being paid fairly, that you're not being exploited. And unlike the initial visa application, where you could sometimes get a reduction on the going rate, like if you had a PhD, no such luck for ILR.
So even if you're a super qualified brainiac, got to be earning what everyone else in your field is earning.
That's the rule. They want to see you're integrated into the UK job market, not undercutting others.
How do you actually prove all this to the Home Office? Like, how do they know you're earning what you say you are and that your job is secure?
Two things. Pay slips, of course, recent ones to show your current salary. But the big one, the make or break piece of paper, is the employer letter.
The employer letter.
Yeah, it's got to be on company letterhead, signed by someone important like HR or a director. They confirm your job's still going, that you need it, all that.
So it's not enough to just meet the salary. Your employer has to basically vouch for you.
Exactly. And they need to state your job title, your SOC code, confirm it's permanent or at least not ending soon, your current salary, the whole nine yards.
What happens if that letter's missing? Or if the employer hints that your job's on shaky ground?
Refusal. Straight up.
Oh,
The Home Office needs to see you're employed, that you're going to keep contributing to the UK economy.
okay, makes sense. Now, what about those who've changed jobs during their time on the skilled worker visa? Is that allowed?
It is, as long as you follow the rules for changing employers and you still meet all the criteria for the visa in your new role.
But you can't just hop from job to job and still get ILR, right?
Nope. You have to be employed in that sponsored role when you apply. If you've left your sponsor and aren't working for them anymore, well, you're not eligible for ILR as a skilled worker.
So changing jobs is fine as long as you're still sponsored in a qualifying role.
Exactly. And your new employer needs to be on board with providing that all-important confirmation letter.
What about salary changes? Like, what if you got a promotion and a pay raise? Or if your salary went down for some reason?
They'll compare your current salary to what was on your last certificate of sponsorship. A pay cut? That can raise a red flag.
Even if it's for a legitimate reason?
Even then, you got to explain it, both you and your employer, in a cover letter and in the employer's confirmation.
So, like, if you move to a cheaper area or something, that's okay as long as it's all above board.
Yeah, but the key is transparency. If your salary dropped below the minimum for your job, that's a problem.
So best practice is to maintain at least your previous salary and always be above the ILR threshold.
That's the safest bet. And remember, those thresholds, they can change. So don't just assume what worked for your visa will work for ILR. Double check those numbers.
Okay, let's move on to something that might seem simple, but is actually a real trap for many: documentation.
Ah, yes, paperwork, the bane of many an applicant's existence. You wouldn't believe how many ILR applications get rejected because of simple mistakes in the forms or missing documents.
Seriously, like what kind of mistakes?
Oh, all sorts. Forgetting to fill in sections, not signing the form if it's paper, uploading blurry scans, missing translations for foreign documents. You name it, people mess it up.
Sounds frustrating.
Yeah.
So what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
Be meticulous. Triple check everything. Use the official document checklist they give you after you apply online. And don't be afraid to ask for help if you're unsure about something.
What are some of the most important documents someone on a skilled worker visa needs to gather?
Okay, the big ones. Your passport, of course, all your old ones too, from the past 5 years. Your BRP card, your employer's letter, proof you passed the Life in the UK test.
Right, those make sense. Anything else that's often overlooked?
Travel history. They want to know about every trip you took, when you left, when you came back, and having bank statements and pay slips, that can be helpful too, just as extra proof of your earnings.
Good point. Now, you mentioned translations. What's the rule there?
Any document not in English or Welsh needs a certified translation. No exceptions. And it's got to be done properly by a qualified translator.
So no Google Translate shortcuts.
Definitely not. And file format matters too. Usually they want scans, clear ones, poorly scanned docs, or anything that looks dodgy that can raise red flags.
So it's not enough to just have the right documents. They have to be presented correctly.
Exactly. It all shows you're taking it seriously, that
Yeah.
you're organized, that you're genuinely trying to meet the requirements.
Makes sense. Okay, let's talk about another must-do for ILR, the knowledge requirements.
Right. The two biggies, English language and the Life in the UK test. These are non-negotiable for almost everyone applying for ILR, regardless of which route you're on.
So let's start with the Life in the UK test. What's it all about?
It's a multiple-choice test, covers British culture, history, laws, all that good stuff. You got to pass it, no ifs, ands, or buts.
Sounds like a good pub quiz night.
Kind of, yeah.
Okay.
But with higher stakes, no pass, no ILR, and you got to provide the path certificate number on your application.
So make sure you don't lose that certificate.
Definitely. And book the test early. It can get booked up, and you don't want to be scrambling last minute.
Any exemptions?
Very, very few. Some folks with serious health conditions might be exempt, but they need a very specific medical waiver. For most people, it's a must-do.
Now, English language, we touched on it earlier, but just to confirm, skilled workers, they usually don't need to take another test for ILR, right?
Right. They already proved their English for the visa. The Home Office says it explicitly. You don't need to prove it again for ILR.
So no need to stress about IELTS or anything like that.
Unless your initial proof is expired or lost, then it's good to include a copy, just in case. But if you passed a CELT like IELTS a few years back, no need to retake it.
But what about dependents, like if your spouse is applying with you?
That's different. They usually do need to show they meet the English requirement, at least B1 level, unless they've already done it for a previous visa.
So main applicant's off the hook, but the spouse has to prove their English.
In most cases, yeah. And if you originally got an exemption, like if you're from an English-speaking country, that exemption still applies for ILR.
So keep those documents handy, just in case they ask.
Always a good idea. Now, both the Life in the UK test and the English requirement, they've got the same exemptions.
Like what?
Under 18s, over 65s, they don't need to do either. And as we said, some folks with serious health conditions might be exempt, but they need strong medical evidence.
Okay, so bottom line, have your English proof ready just in case, and absolutely, positively pass that Life in the UK test.
No two ways about it. Missing either one, it's an automatic refusal.
Okay, last bit. Let's talk about those annoying little procedural things that can also trip you up, application timing and fees.
Right, these are the things that make you go, seriously, I got rejected because of that. But they happen all the time.
Like what?
Okay, the obvious one, applying late. Visa expires before you apply for ILR. You're an overstayer and your application's basically invalid.
So even if it's just a day or two late, no leniency.
Not usually. There's a tiny grace period, 14 days, but good luck proving your reason was good enough. Just don't risk it. Renew or extend your visa if you're not ready for ILR yet.
What about the opposite, applying too early?
Another no-no. Can't apply more than 28 days before your 5 years are up. Remember that countdown.
Yeah, so no rushing it.
Nope. And then there's the classic picking the wrong category on the application.
Right. Got to make sure you select skilled worker, not something else.
Exactly. Wrong category, wrong questions, missing info, instant refusal. And then there's the fee, the big one. Over £2,800 last time I checked.
Yeah, that's a lot of cash. What happens if you mess up the payment?
Well, Wrong amount, payment fails, whatever the reason they won't process it, might even reject it as invalid. So double check those digits.
So not only do you lose the money, your application's basically gone too.
Yep. And if you're including dependents, make sure you pay for everyone. Don't forget the biometrics fee either, if you have to do that.
Biometrics, that's the fingerprints and photo, right?
Yep.
Don't miss that appointment. Reschedule if you have to, but don't just skip it. That can get your application canceled.
And then there's a travel ban while you're waiting.
Yes. The golden rule, don't leave the UK while your ILR is pending. The moment you do, they consider it withdrawn. No decision, no refund, gotta start again.
So even if it's a quick trip, a family emergency, doesn't matter.
There is one exception, the super priority service. If you pay extra, they aim to decide within a day or two. But unless you've used that, stay put.
So once you hit that submit button, you're pretty much grounded until you hear back.
Pretty much. And look, I know this all sounds like a minefield. It's a complex process, there's no denying it. But with careful preparation, attention to detail, and maybe some help from an expert, it's definitely doable.
Okay, before we wrap up, any final thoughts on recent changes and trends in ILR processing? Anything our listeners should be particularly aware of? Oh, absolutely. Things are always shifting in the world of immigration, so staying up to date is key. First off, salary thresholds. They've been creeping up in recent years. Right now, it's £38,700 for most, but always check the latest on gov.uk. Don't rely on old info.
Right, so don't assume that because you met the requirement a few years ago, you're still good.
Exactly. Then there's the continuous residence rule. They've clarified how they calculate absences, especially for decisions made this year onwards. It's all on a rolling 12-month basis now, so you got to be extra careful tracking your time abroad.
So no more just looking at calendar years. Every single day counts, and those 12-month periods can overlap.
Yep, it's more strict, more precise. And they're also cracking down on sham employment, making sure your job is genuine, that your sponsor is legit, so make sure your employer has a valid license. Don't get caught out by that.
And procedurally, things are changing too, right? Like no more physical BRP cards for ILR.
Yep, it's all digital now. You get a visa, an online confirmation of your status. So no more waiting for that card in the mail, but make sure you know how to access your visa, how to prove your status digitally.
And processing times?
Yeah.
Any changes there?
Standard processing, still around 6 months. But you can pay extra for priority service if you're in a hurry. But even then, be prepared for potential delays. They can be a